As young children, it's easy to pick up beliefs and behaviors that seem to work for us, but as we move into adulthood, we find that is no longer the case. Today, I'm going to share with you a personal story of how one of my early unhelpful behaviors was transformed by God into something beautiful and useful for me today. Welcome to the Unhurried Living Podcast. You offer your support, leadership, and guidance to so many, and we know it's getting more and more difficult to withstand the pressures of our current culture. Anxiety, depression, and overwhelm are at an all-time high. We are here to support you in your relationship with God, with others, and in your work. So, we have expanded our ability to journey with you individually. We'd love to announce our new Unhurried Living Associates. Each of our associates is a mature Christian leader who has earned their title by degree, extensive experience, rigorous certification, or training. Our associates are mature pastors, spiritual directors, or life coaches who can journey alongside you in your current context. We know and we trust all of our associates and would go to them for counsel ourselves. They are thoughtful, gracious, and capable. I'd love for you to learn more about how you can get the support you need. All you have to do is go to unhurriedliving.com/associates and get the support you need to make your way forward in your life and leadership. If you're new to the podcast, I welcome you, and I'm so glad you found us. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'd love it if you'd share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. I grew up with a mom who was quite troubled. She grew up during a time when people didn't talk about their problems or readily receive counseling to help with their healing. She was traumatized in various ways over the course of her early life, and this resulted in a life of fear, which led to becoming over-controlling. Now, as I have reflected upon her in my second half of life, I see that considering all she went through, she did very well inside her circumstances. She raised me and, along with my dad, gave me every opportunity afforded by a middle-class family. And even though I was an only child with a sprinkling of foster siblings, my childhood was full of simple and beautiful memories. Fishing in the river, swinging on homemade swings, creating arts and crafts, playing piano, riding my horse or my bike, listening to music, sledding, gardening, play dates, and more. A wonderful childhood. And even with all that good stuff going on around me, some unhelpful emotional and relational undercurrents developed within me as a result of my mom's unhealed parts. Now, please note here that I'm not blaming my mom for anything. I'm simply describing a dynamic. I've already done the hard work of therapy and have found wonderful freedom in my adult life. I am responsible for my own feelings and actions. I learned, even as a young child, to come into the room with my relational antenna out. I believed I had to read the room, the mood, the words, and the body language to know what was going on. In my little mind, this kept me safe. If I could determine what was going on, I could make decisions about my own behavior. Mostly, I tried to lift the mood of the room by being upbeat so that things might go well. As children, we pick up on cues, especially nonverbal ones. We adjust our behavior, and then we make decisions about what to keep, what to toss out, and what to hide away. Some of us do this with a focus on a sense of safety, some for a sense of value, and others for a sense of control. Well, as a young adult, I continued this practice without knowing I was doing it, of course. I was still under the impression that all the relational and emotional cue data that I was collecting was serving me well by keeping me safe. I wasn't aware, however, of the emotional, physical, and psychological toll it was taking on me. But isn't that the fun of midlife? You get to come face to face with all that isn't working any longer. And if you are intentional, you can come to terms with all your inner dynamics, sometimes with the help of a good therapist and spiritual director. And you can find release and healing from all of that which you unintentionally picked up in the first half of life. Now, with all of that said, my little story there, the conversation we're having is really about redemption. You see, what was overwhelming and unhealthy in the first half of life can be identified, moved through, healed, and transformed. These days, traces of the unhelpful antenna still emerge from time to time, but I can catch myself faster, and I have tools to help me. And the ability to focus on others has been transformed. It now looks more like paying attention, listening deeply, focusing, and being present. People often comment to me how focused, non-anxious, and present I feel to them. That is the transforming gift of the Spirit. I take no credit for this dynamic except to say that I consented to and participated in this transforming work of the Spirit in many and various ways. When I was young, I practiced looking at someone else to determine how to keep myself safe. Now, I practice looking at someone else to hold sacred space for them so they might feel safe in God's presence. All things work together for good, from Romans 8:28, is a phrase that has been used and abused in many a Christian conversation. The cavalier use of this verse is like slapping a Band-Aid on a severed limb. However, in this case, I think it's a beautiful place to enjoy the richness of what it might really mean. God redeems that which is broken, lost, or dysfunctional. Over time, my unhealthy antenna has become a renewed practice of presence, focus, and care. That's the work of the kingdom, and this is the journey I love. Some Christians talk about conversion as a one-time event, but we are all being converted over our entire lifetime into the likeness of Christ. Conversion is long and slow and messy because it's a change in nature. The question is this: are you aware of and cooperating with this God-initiated process? Now, Romans 12:1-2 says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." And 2 Corinthians 3:17-18 says, "Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we all who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit." Now, notice in these two passages that transformation is in the passive. We are being transformed. And even though the language is passive, the relationship and dynamic are not. Making ourselves intentionally and cooperatively available to this transformation is central. We aren't doing it for selfish or self-centered reasons. A healthy us is what allows us to serve others well. Our formation matters to our leadership, our relationships, and our work. So let's reflect for a moment. It might be good to ponder, pray, or journal these questions. How are you remaining open to the transformational process of God in your life? What early childhood dynamics have been or could be redeemed for this current season of your life? And finally, what support might you need in order to move to greater healing? My prayer is that God attend to you as you make your way. As always, thank you for joining me on the Unhurried Living Podcast. Remember, you're making your way forward one small, simple, and gracious step at a time.